Dear distinguished members and friends, I have great pleasure in extending a warm and hearty welcome to all of you on this webinar, The Impact of COVID-19 on the Indian Startup Ecosystems. We thank our distinguished panelists, Shri Arijit Bhattacharya, founder and CEO of Virtual Infocom and Senator for India in World Business Angels Forum, Mr. Anand Kumar Bajaj, founder and CEO Pay Nearby, my friend, my senior, Mr. Chandradeep Mitra, founder and CEO People Magic and co-founder Meta for Sites, and advisor and mentor to IIM Calcutta, Mr. Vikram Duggal, managing partner, Ekel Ventures, and my school-time friend for this kind presence and address today. The session will be moderated by Dr. Subhranshu Sanyal, CEO, IIM Calcutta Innovation Park. Dr. Sanyal, a hearty welcome to you as well. Although I know I was just told that it's 1.5 hours, I don't intend to give a very long, boring speech. Just wanted to keep a few key points. I think at least for the next 18 months, there will be a lot of crescendo on digital. A lot of people will try and adapt it to rechange and reshape the way they do things. And I think these startups would be the front runner to be providing these solutions. My personal wish list from the startup community is people have a lot of good ideas and they come up with these ideas, and some of these ideas are actually implemented in execution. It is the adaptability of these ideas, and especially with the old businesses, that remains a challenge, and that is something where we see that a lot of old businesses have not done the hand holding and come on to the new, so, and somehow they get left out and they get a little disoriented. So I would personally like to see how these startups can actually marry technology to the challenges that brick and mortar people are facing. These startups do have new employment creating opportunities, and they've always played a role in it. We would like to see how the startup scenario thinks about getting some kind of labor employment, because we are going to see a lot of unemployment in and around us. And the challenges that some of our members have shared in startups is fundraising, because IPO plans will get deferred, investment round sizes will be getting cut. So they want to, one of the takeaways that they wanted from the seminar was if people could throw some light on this. And the challenge that the startup system will also feel in the non-digital space, especially if they're not giving non-digital solutions, is the discretionary spending is going to be reduced drastically. So how do you make win-win situations where you do not charge a lot of money yet make me collaborate with you? With these words, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Subhranshu Sanyal to take things forward. Welcome all of you, and thank you once again for joining. On behalf of MCCI, I personally wish to really thank you for coming out on this hot summer afternoon and taking time out, giving your valuable time, inputs and suggestions. Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Dr. Sanyal.
Thank you, Vivek. Thanks to MCCI for organizing, I would call it Adda session now, because we have a very close small group, but Adda session on something which is really serious for all of us. It might be the webinar fatigue also, as CD said, and I am also observing that. The last, I don't know, the last 10 webinars I attended, all the webinars were on something to do with COVID-19 or this corona pandemic. So it seems that we are not talking about anything else except corona nowadays, and maybe that's not so good. So it's like the corona booth haunting us. My kids watch this corona booth cartoon, which teaches them lessons how to maintain the hygiene. And also, I was thinking, and is it the Corona booth that is behind all of us? Like you watch TV, the booth is there, newspaper, the booth is there, WhatsApp, Facebook, everywhere you see the booth. Even you step outside, you can see the booth silently moving around you. You can feel the breath. So maybe that's the kind of anxiety and panic that everybody is going through. And definitely the businesses are, as Vivek rightly mentioned, some of the challenges, some of the predictions. In fact, I was going through a few reports as a preparation for this webinar, and I figured out that experts are predicting anywhere between $2 to $3 trillion, like shaved off from the global economy. And like another estimate is that till date, this 40-day lockdown, it has caused $320 billion already to the Indian economy. So it's definitely challenging times. And on a lighter note, see, I am from like a management background, and we have a very important chapter called risk management. And the very basic things in the risk management, we had something called known unknown and unknown unknown, right? So known unknown, we could have, when the students asked for examples, we could provide various examples. But unknown unknown, we really struggle to give an example. But now one good thing is we have a good example of unknown unknown. And as a characteristic of any unknown unknown risk, you cannot plan for any mitigation. So obviously, the businesses, nobody could have any, could have planned any mitigation to start with. So it's an initial shock. And now with all these predictions and all coming up, it's really a panic situation for the business. And again, I was looking at a survey. It was like survey among the startups and MSMEs. And it says that more than half of them have a runway which is less than 3 months. So that is a situation here. So now I have a lot of, on behalf of the audience, I have a lot of questions, and I think if we get some pointers or tips around those, this will definitely give some pointers to the startups or that way any small business. And we have a great panel here, and I know all of them we work closely. So I think it's a great comfort feeling to see Chandradeep Mitra, Vikram Duggal, Arijit Bhattacharya, and Anand Bajaj together in this panel. So it's a privilege. Thanks, CD, Vikram, Arijit, and Anand for taking out your time. Now I'll start with a very different question. That is that, look, everybody is talking about the Corona booth and we are all scared, damn scared. We are panicking, we are anxious. But if you look at the, some standard statistics, just let's say the death figures, okay, the death count. So probably I think we have around 2,200, 2,300. If you look at some other cases like TB, that kills more than 4 lakh people every year. Snake bite, that causes more than 50,000 deaths every year. And we hardly know about the statistics, okay? Then on the other hand, you see a lot of the number of cases starting from the financial crisis, various kind of war, conflict. Yes, there were temporary setback, but after a few months, things got back to almost normal. And a number of times India proved that our economy is quite resilient. So the first question to all the panelists, I request you to just share your 2 minutes quick gut feel on this question. That is it a false alarm? Are we panicking too much, or is there any reason to panic, or is justified? So I'll start with maybe Chandradeep Mitra, and then Vikram, Arijit, and Anand. Just your 2 minutes thought on this. Is it a false alarm, or is it really something we should worry about?
Okay. since you've started with me, let me respond. You know, you're absolutely right in saying that there is a matter of perspective when it comes to, you know, the degree of impact that COVID or coronavirus, whatever we may call it, can have in terms of human lives, right? And if you look at, though the numbers have been growing and in some cases very steeply, uh, they are still, especially in India, they are still you know, relatively small compared to the size of the Indian population, as well as the impact of many other diseases or causes of death. It could be road accidents, it could be heart attacks, it could be TB, whatever, right? And we have those numbers, and they are anyway indicative. But you know, I come from the world of business and marketing, and you know, I see a few other people here who also probably would bear me out, including Vikram. You know, in marketing, what matters is people's perceptions, right? So even if the actual impact is limited to a certain extent, but that has a huge impact on people's behavior. And when I'm saying people, I mean businesses, I mean governments, I mean authorities, I mean consumers. You know, if almost across all categories, consumer behavior is going to change or has already changed fundamentally. You know, people are going to be very scared going into a restaurant or a hotel or a movie hall or whatever, right? You know, I was just talking to Vivek. A lot of advertisers have cut down advertising because they think that now with shrinking demand, there is not much point in advertising, and that is impacting the media business. Now, it is people's perception. Now, consumer perception, which is leading to marketers' perception, but unfortunately, it is impacting the reality of the business of media. You know, it's very ironical. I was just telling Vivek that in some ways, media business has actually grown in terms of the total amount of content consumption. People need more news. People are staying at home. They need more entertainment. But one of the key sources of revenue for the media business is advertising. Now, if advertisers have severely cut down advertising budgets across most categories because they are assuming that consumers are not going to go out and buy stuff, partly because there's a lockdown, but partly also even when the lockdown you know, gets released, people would still be wary of going out and buying things. A lot of people's you know, purchase patterns are now becoming very conservative. People want to store cash because people are afraid that, you know, their earning may come down or they may lose jobs or whatever. Now, all of this is impacting the world of business. So, you know, we have to look at COVID and coronavirus from 3-4 perspectives. One is the health and the, you know, the actual number of deaths or whatever. The other is the economic perspective. And from a business point of view, we have to also, there is a short-term issue from a lockdown and, you know, supply chains getting disrupted and all that. But, you know, the bigger problem over the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 year will not be, you know, the lockdown will get released. The supply chain and the supply side problem will not be as much. But the demand problem might continue existing across many categories for quite some time. And that, I think, is probably the biggest impact from a economy and livelihood point of view. Obviously, it has impact on the economy, it has impact on businesses, it has impact on jobs and people's earning capacity, all of that. And if they earn less, how much will they spend? Will their attitude towards consumption change? So all of this is going to probably last for, I don't know how long. As you rightly said, we are in an unknown territory. We don't have any past precedent. But partly because of that, the fear in people's mind might actually make them overreact. But as a result of that, that impact will be felt by businesses, right? So that's a quick answer, maybe not so quick one. And I'm going to let the other panelists take it from there.
Yeah. So Vikram.
Yeah. So in my perspective, I think, yes, it's a genuine problem and a huge problem. And here's why. While the fatality rate of COVID-19 can be seen as comparatively lower than SARS or any other of the such epidemics or pandemics that have impacted us in the past. I mean, it's some people say 5%, some people say 3%, but in certain countries it's even as high as 10%, right? So that is one. While the fatality rate is low, that's making people question whether, you know, is it really that big a problem? But the reality is the rate of infection is crazy. I mean, we have never seen this kind of a rate of infection ever. So if things were just left unchecked, and if we went about a normal, regular business as usual without following any of these, social distancing or sanitization or protocols or hygiene best practices, whatever, we've seen in the case of US, for example. So in India, in a country like India, for example, we could easily, be running into 300-400 million infected cases, right? In which case the 10% fatality rate would balloon up to be a huge number. The trick here is, I mean, the biggest problem here is not just the fatality rate, the fear of infection. Because even if you have a TB patient, for example, or somebody with a snake bite, that person is not going to affect the healthcare worker who is trying to treat him. The taxi driver who's trying to transport him to the hospital is not going to get infected. The politicians, the bureaucrats, the police machinery, the teachers, nobody's going to get impacted. Here, as it is, we do not have a very stable, robust healthcare system. It's obviously going to get severely overwhelmed once the numbers start coming in. And the people who are treating, the nurses and the doctors, if they end up contracting the virus, which we have already seen has happened in so many of these cases, then the whole machinery starts to collapse, right? Because then you don't have anybody to treat the patients anymore, and patients' numbers are just swelling up, right? And the number of the healthcare people are keeping on going down. So, this is the fear that once this whole machinery, the entire system collapses, from then it's going to be a point of no return. Because right now, the kind of recoveries that we are seeing, the fatality rate is comparatively lower as compared to SARS or other epidemics, is because of the fact that there are these healthcare workers out there who are trying to kind of revive and make these patients recover. But imagine if we didn't have those kind of facilities, right? We didn't have those ventilators, or we didn't have any of these medications. So I think that is the real fear, that is the real challenge, which is why countries across the world have resorted to such kind of means as lockdown. And I think that's my 2 bits to add to this.
Okay, thanks, Vikram. Arijit, your thoughts, please.
Okay, so let me stick to the point of startup ecosystem as well as the pandemic, whether it's a false alarm or we are thinking too much. I feel this is an opportunity. This is not a point of, I think that I'll stick to only the subject matter, because if we talk about COVID-19, you all know that Indians do have a different kind of immunity system rather than the Western guys. If you look at any American, they are traveling to India. If they consume our normal water, if they consume normal tap water, they will get sick. But if you look at Indians, they are drinking it day in and day out. So the immunity system of Indians are completely different than others. There is a surprising fact. Indians don't consume protein a lot. Indians don't consume fat a lot. They usually consume more carbohydrate than the Western guys. So if you look at Indians do have a completely different internal organism system, which is God known. Maybe Shiva can tell us what is there inside us. We consume a lot of virus each and every day rather than normal healthy food. We consume a lot of bacteria rather than normal healthy food. So we are habituated with DART. We are habituated with all those nonsense stuff that we do. To be very honest, I feel COVID is a boon for Indian people. They will realize how to stand in a queue. They will realize not to spit on the roads. They will realize not to hug someone with a dirty, muddy, and full of full of gandagi in their body. They will realize that, okay, fine, they need to go for more hygienic way. And the best part, if you look at the hospitals nowadays, each and every person, they are wearing masks. So the perception that we have that you will get a coronavirus inside you. Corona, by the way, it was 1960s invented virus. This is COVID-19. Is somehow media, I'm deeply, sorry that people are talking all about Corona in media. It's COVID-19. People should talk about COVID-19 rather than Corona. The very term is wrong. So COVID-19, if you look at that term, that very virus, if you're trying to protect itself with normal mask, it's not going to help you. First of all, we have a deepest problem in the healthcare system, at least in India. We are offering raincoat rather than the PPE kit. Sorry, I mean, that's my own perception. If you look at the layering of that mask, which is being provided to the healthcare workers, those 3 layers are not enough. If you look at the proper N95 mask, if you cut it up, you'll understand the layers that is not there. So certainly your infection rate will increase. But if you look at the different kind of perspective, if you look at the market, like Shubhranshu asked me whether it's a false alarm or we should think of it as an opportunity or something else, I'll go back to history. In 1960s, India used to import grains from USA. We used to pay heavy amount of money, and then Green Revolution happened. And now in India, we have more grain than ever. We became one of the biggest, largest grain producer in the world. If you go back to 1970 and 1971, in 1970s, due to that IT recession, Mr. Narayan Murthy and their teammate, they decided not to go back to the job, rather they will start Infosys. If they haven't thought that, they will start Infosys borrowing 10,000 rupees from somebody, and it started from a normal flat. In today's world, we didn't saw the biggest IT giant in India. In those time, in 1971, foreign exchange market, they used to reserve a lot of cash, and there was a deficit, approx, I think, as per my memory goes, it was $1 billion deficit in foreign exchange. And then Narasimha Rao opened the market. Once the market opened, certainly multiple number of investment happened in India. Now we became cash rich. It's not only the foreign people are investing in India. We as Indian company, we started investing in foreign companies. We started buying foreign companies. Look at Mr. Tata. Look at the other people. Reliance. Look at the other big giants. They have invested different kind of companies out of India. This is basically an opportunity which is there in the market. Just hold tight, secure yourself, increase your immunity. That's the key. It's not about the mask. It's about how you can become immune with the virus. See, it's not my statement. It's completely my personal opinion. I was talking to one virologist. Certainly, he told me that it's not going to go. At least this COVID-19 will stay for next 2.5 years. It's going to stay. So you have to live with it. So it's like you got married to a lady, so you have to actually bear her for the next 2 to 2.5 years, so that you both can understand each other and continue your journey. And virus, to be very honest, you cannot kill a virus. It's a science. It's a basic science. We all read it in our textbook. You can't kill it. You have to actually build a system, an antibacterial system. It can be an antivirus system which can penetrate it inside your body so that you don't get affected that much. And that will happen. And certainly some startup will come in the market. They will do the disruption. Certainly, I'll come back to this, Shubhranshu. I have multiple examples during this COVID time, how many innovation happened, how many disruption happened. And sir, for your information regarding media and CD, multiple number of investments are happening, at least in our business. I run a game development company. We have seen the increasing number of ads into our games, into our VR products. So market is shifting from the traditional to digital media. So the boom is coming.
Arijit, I liked your presentation or your argument because you got a twist to the entire story. Because as per CD and Vikram, it's perception. So CD was talking about perception driving consumer behavior and the demand cycle, which is impacting business definitely. And Vikram was talking about the perception of everybody catching infection, the fear of catching infection. which is acting as an impediment to normal life. And Arijit, you were saying that start, learn how to live with it. And you also that great example of like you're already married to a lady, you need to live with her for 2.5 years. That was your example. So I think what you wanted to mean is that don't worry about the infection, rather think that what you can do to fight it, and use the challenges as opportunities. Give some examples. So that's a good twist. Now with that, I mean the arguments from these two corners. Now let me request Anand to share his thoughts. Now I have two questions for Anand. First on this topic, that is it a false alarm, or how do you look at it? And number two is that you are running a successful startup and you are connected to the startup ecosystem at a national level, and more so from the NCR, in the NCR community, right? So how do you see the businesses reacting on that part of India? Okay, like what are the challenges that you see your fellow entrepreneurs are talking about? So we'd like to know about that. So two questions for you, one after another. The first one is your reaction on the false alarm topic, and the second is what is your experience? What's happening there?
So
the challenges.
it's for real, Prof. I'll tell you this: no hypothesis, no perception, no future gauging. Let me ask you: when will you go to Russell Street and have puchka next, or to Vardhan Market? I have given it up. When will you go to a cinema hall next? I will not. Restaurant, not for 6 months, 9 months. We are shit scared, and this is reality. To your question of comparison with the TB and other mortalities, this is a controlled environment, and I don't think we should compare. This is not apple to apple comparison. The whole country is in lockdown for 60 days, and the real potent of this virus has not been demonstrated. It's a mayhem. The world is on collapse. The jobs are going away as an outcome. So this is certainly a reality, to keep it short. That's it on the ground facts on the impact on the fintech world and other industries as well. Which industry will be left untouched? I would want to understand beyond healthcare. The manufacturing is on all-time down. The shared economy is gone for toss. The gig economy deliveries are getting marred. The auto manufacturing is on a standstill. Farming is, of course, being attempted, but all the migrants from Bihar have gone back from Punjab. खेत खड़े हैं, वहाँ पे काटने वाला कोई नहीं खड़ा है. तो क्या बचेगा इसके बाद? ये बहुत आसान नहीं है. It's not a very easy outcome to sustain. And that said, if you look at the financial technology itself, the billions of lending done out to people who are on sustenance mode and they borrowed money, now with no job, how are they going to repay? So out goes out of it the MFI and the NBFC sector, and it's a turbulent time. 6 months moratorium, no moratorium. It's a tough time to go and recover that money back, because people will not be able to go back to job, get the job after the moratorium is lifted. If you look at the digital payment, most of the digital payments have been linked to the shared economy, the mobility through the cabs, or through the food tech, or through the all the deliveries that were happening, the payments were tagged to it. The billion transaction a month from 1.3 billion to 1 billion has already dipped on UPI, which is a very awesome touchless, formless payment module. It is demonstrated that the e-commerce has its own suffering. But what is interesting is that the work that we do as PayNearby, we had built a moat around 4.5 lakh retailers, and that too 93% of these retailers are in rural and tier 2, 3, 4 towns where banking had not penetrated. The delight is limited to the fact that government has put money in the bank accounts. We are the ones who are handing it over to the poor migrants, the poor citizen. And today we do 100 to 130 crore of disbursement every good day, every day. So this has maintained our sustenance as a moat, and I would say we were lucky to remain here to serve the citizen. not customer. We have adopted the term from customer. We are serving the citizen, because it is not just our customer. It is beyond us. We serve customers of all the banks, and hence we are surviving. The rebooting of India will be evident in the times to come, where everything will be restarted, reimagined, and Tom Peters would be laughing to the bank, because he has written extensively on the reimagine hypothesis, that how human has built things which are unnecessary. And today we are saying that if you don't consume unnecessary things, the economy will collapse. What a joke. If you are living on just necessity, the economy will collapse. And that is what is fact, because we have built a drawing room beyond the bedroom. We have built another kitchen and 2 bathrooms. We have built another study room. All of this is unnecessary. And human race will stand up to come to the bare minimalistic lifestyles. And COVID is a great equalizer. We will talk about it more. I'll hold on here for now.
Thanks, Anand. Just to summarize what you said, it's a real red alert, and you have supported your argument with the indicators, the current situation that you are observing from various angles, starting from the migrant labors, and then again you spoke about the changing consumer behavior and various aspects. But one interesting point I picked up from your views is that your organization has not suffered as badly as most of the organizations, and you have seen some good traction in terms of the number of transactions that's happening through your system, right? That's what you have mentioned, Anand. So that's very interesting. I'll come back. So that means there are opportunities as well. It's not that only challenges and challenges. So we are hearing about challenges, enough challenges we are hearing, we are reading and all. So maybe we need to think a bit positive now, so that, because we all want to be optimistic, we want to live with hope. So let me ask this question to, again, to Chandradeep, that CD, challenges we have discussed, we have heard. Are there opportunities as well for our startups or small businesses? If yes, then what are those opportunities that you see?
Yes. So I'm really taking off from everything that I just heard. First and foremost, we have to acknowledge, and I think we will be ostriches if we don't acknowledge that this is probably the biggest disruption of life, business, everything as we know it in our own lifetimes, right? And most of us here are been around for a long time. Some of us are more than 50 years old. And I don't think, we heard of stories of Great Depression or Indian independence or partition or, all of that, World War II. But in our lifetimes, I don't think we have seen anything as big and disruptive as this one. And the story isn't over yet. There is still, kahani abhi baki hai. So that is number one. So we have to first acknowledge it. Secondly, we have to understand that there are some businesses which are being impacted. All businesses are being impacted. Some businesses are being impacted far bigger. If you're in the travel or tourism or F&B or whatever, you're much more likely, if you're an FMCG company, if you're making, hand washes or whatever, there may be a short-term, supply chain disruption, but in the long run, you're either positive or you would be neutral. If you're one of my clients is a tea company, and what they're saying is that, finally people will drink tea. So that will continue, hopefully. But as Anand mentioned, if you own a cinema hall, how long can you run a cinema hall without people coming and watching cinema? And we've just seen over the last 1 week, new films which are now getting launched for the first time straight on OTT platforms like Hotflix or Netflix. Now, this would basically mean that, for every business, I think we have to go 3 steps back. We have to first understand what need do we fulfill. For example, if I'm in the news business, if I'm in the entertainment business, maybe the business model that I currently have cannot work anymore or will can work, but after 6 months, 9 months, if that is so, then I have to figure out how can I survive and stay alive for 6-9 months, which is what is we call the long runway. And in certain cases, we have to just pivot, which is again a startup thing. We have to find a new. So if I'm in the content business, you know, Arijit was talking about, yes, there's a lot of content consumption which is happening. So I have to figure out what are the new ways of content consumption and new ways of monetizing. It is probably a completely different new business model or a new platform or a new technology driven solution that I have to come up with. If the deep down human need is going to last, even if it gets disrupted for 3-6 months, but it's going to last beyond that, then maybe there is a way that with a new business model, I can come back. And this is where I partly agree with Arijit. Startups have actually an advantage over large established businesses simply because, I'll give an analogy. You know, if you're a large existing business, you're like the Titanic. You see the iceberg in front of you, and there's very little you can do. It will come and hit you and you will capsize. But if you're a startup, you're like a small gunboat. You can be much more agile. You can probably change your business model. You can try new things. You can change technology. You can do whatever else. You can adapt faster. You can be more agile, and maybe you have a better chance. So it is quite possible that in a lot of businesses where the basic human need will continue to remain, after 3 years or 5 years, what you might find is that the old businesses have died and a bunch of new startups with new business models have come and captured the market with completely new business models. That is entirely possible. So that is the opportunity that startups have. First and foremost, let's ask the question that, is the long-term human need going to be there, and is that need monetizable? And then if so, if I'm a startup, my short-term problem is how do I survive over the next 6 months, 9 months? And in the long run, can I figure out a new business model or a new solution which can actually capture the new normal better than the old established businesses? And I think from that point of view, I think there is a ray of hope for startups, which might be even better in some ways than established companies. Though for startups, for a lot of startups I know right now, survival is a matter of absolute crisis. So, first you have to, survive for the next 6 months or 9 months before the question of making money comes up. Yeah.
Thanks, CD. I think that's a marketing prof talking about going back to basics, revisit the business model, figure out that what kind of need you are satisfying. Is it a good to have or is it a real pain point? If required, pivot. And what CD feels is startups are best positioned to do that because they are more agile. And if you can, but they need to survive the next 6 months, they need to stay afloat. And what CD, as per CD's prediction, COVID will give birth to a whole new set of startups which we have not seen earlier. So that's great, CD. Now, I was observing Arijit shaking his head, and he was agreeing to many of your comments. So, okay, so it seems that he has a lot to add. And Arijit, please go ahead, share your thoughts on the same, on the opportunities that you see, and maybe you have a lot of international exposure. You interact with a lot of international startups. If something related to the international market you can share with us, that would be great.
Sure. So maybe I'll take maybe, I don't know, maybe 15-20 minutes. I'll be sharing a lot if I'm allowed. Is it fine?
Well, Arijit, 15-20 minutes will be a bit long.
Okay. So I'll try to finish it within 10 minutes. Is it fine?
Okay, if it's a bit shorter, like 8 minutes would be fine because we have a time
I'll try my
constraint.
best.
Okay, sure.
See, COVID-19, I'm talking about during COVID-19 and pre-COVID-19. Let me reveal you a hardcore fact. In 2017 end, Virtual Infocom, we decided to go fully online on remote mode. there are multiple reasons. I used to have employees from out of India, and it was impossible for me to open up office in each and every different country. We opened up an office in South Korea with a partnership. We started a small base in Dubai, and we realized that it's really literally impossible. The kind of work that we do, it's required a lot of different kind of culture. Somehow we have a huge gap. I'm sorry for my statement. We have a huge gap in understanding the impact and understanding the reality of game development field. If you look at recession, at least this industry usually don't get that much of hit than the other industries, to be very honest with you. People are looking for their product promotion. People are looking for their number of people product consumption, and we act as a key in between. It's not about playing a game. We actually connect with real-time, real-life stores so that people can consume those real objects. Food, beverage, dresses. It's not there in India yet. India is maybe lacking 15 years behind that. On the same note, if you look at the countries, which is like, I'll take example of Kenya. I took one person who is a director in iHub Kenya. So she was mentioning about one interesting fact. There, the existing hotel owners, they told the business community, why exactly you are running your existing office? Leave it during COVID-19. You can't open it. But yes, here we are offering our rooms. We are offering our whole hospitality. We are offering our cafe, food to you. You come up with all your employee base, put them in our hotel, put them in different rooms so that they can start working from their own laptop using our Wi-Fi, using our system, using our hygienic process. Ask them to bring their family as well. We'll take care of everything. And regarding the cost, you don't have to pay me the cost that I usually charge. You book it for next 1 month or maybe 2 months. You come here, run your office full-fledged. You take the 1 floor, you may take 2nd floor, you may take 3rd floor. We don't care. And that happened. It's called collaboration. So during COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 is not an era where you feel that you will rule the market. It's gonna be a complete handshaking model. If you feel I'm in fintech, I'm good to go. And if you feel I'm in gaming, I'm good to go, it's not gonna happen. You need to handshake with multiple payment gateways. If I'm talking about my company, you have to handshake with multiple payment gateways so that we get more and more funnel. If you talk about, say, the tea business that CD is mentioning, maybe I don't know whether I know that guy or not. So there is a requirement in Russia for consumption of tea, but unfortunately, the kind of tea Russians drink is not there in India. The quality is not matching that much. So the demand is there. It's not that the demand actually, is not there in the market. There are demand. Even till date, there are import-export happening. There are people who are asking for food. There are countries, I can quote from Ukraine. People are looking for different kind of foods, which is necessary, and they don't produce it, so they need it. Like countries like GES countries, they are looking for different kind of objects. Say for an example, I'll take example of Egypt. Egypt right now is looking for alternate power source. There are communities who are looking for solar plants. Now there is no way they can do it inside their country. They need technology. So here there is an opportunity for Indian startup ecosystem, or maybe the Indian startups. It can be Bihar, it can be Bengal, it can be Mumbai. I don't care. But the point is, if there is an opportunity, if we are not at all active, and if at all we are not, qualified enough to address that need, I think we are lacking a lot. I think will be a loser, and we'll be thinking that, okay, fine, COVID-19 is going to end the world economy. See, it cannot happen. It's all about, sorry, I'm taking it a little bit long. I think I haven't crossed 8 minutes with the timing. Well, it's all about your consumption. It's not about your production. See, if you look at the supply chain management, I mean, we have more qualified people in the panel, but a small statement from me. If you want to consume, say, you want biscuits, and there is a lack of biscuit in the market, there will be a queue in maybe in your local store, people will buy more biscuit rather than they usually used to do. Do you remember when we declared that tonight onwards there will be a lockdown? The increasing number of demand which happened in India, it was completely different, and that is going to happen. If you have less supply of goods, certainly people will try to buy it, they will try to stock it. So from where you are going to get it? You need to actually increase your production. So once the lockdown is over, certainly people will go for double shift. If you are going for double shift, because there is a gap that happened, there's a demand that is there in the market. You can't ask people to, okay, fine, you don't consume food. Certainly you will ask people, okay, fine, you consume. And there will be advertisement in the media. If you talk about the media, about your newspaper, about your TV channels, certainly there will be a boost and pumping of money for those products. People will ask to, ask people to consume things and all. From where you are going to get it? You have to go for double shift. If you have to go for double shift, you need more people. If you need more people, certainly you have to take care of their health. So there will be increasing number of implementation of those kind of healthy systems. See, the only concern for me, I'm not at all worried about what will happen to the economy. To be very honest, India is such kind of country, हम लोग यार कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, हम जुगाड़ू हैं, ये मुझे इतना पता है, हम लोग इतना जुगाड़ू है, हम लोग कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, हम लोग मिट्टी को सोना बना सकते हैं, क्या मतलब हम लोग क्या बात कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, हम लोग पूरा दुनिया में राज करते हैं, क्या बात कर रहे हैं हम लोग, right? So if you look at the present scenario, until unless we take care of our own immune system, that's the fear that I have. I don't have any other fear. The main challenge is we don't know. Mr. Anand was talking about going to Russell Street and having puchka. I'll not go there and have puchka. Rather, I'll ask, maybe I'll try it in my home. And if I like puchka, I'll consume at my home. If I like it, I'll ask my friends to come. We'll go together and somebody will make puchka, I'll have it. Why go there? Why have that, those dirty hands? And then again, जब आप घर में आओगे यार आपका stomach is upset. What's the point? So that we need to take care of. If you look at travel and tourism, if you look at travel and tourism, yes, it's affected. Luxury travel most probably is not going to happen for the next 1 year. Agreed. But if you look at international travel, some country they started their international travel. Some countries they have started their business people to go somewhere to fetch money, do business. I'll go back to Australia. One of the I'm revealing the fact in this panel. So I'm a director in one company called Avalue Global, which is established in Australia in 2018 September. So I'm till date director over there officially, and we actually fetch money. You can Google the company, you will understand it. We actually fetch money. We are looking for a system here in India so that we can start a lithium-based battery manufacturing unit. So certainly we'll be needing people, we'll be recruiting people, and whatever state we choose, certainly that state will have different kind of mileage. So business is happening. It's not that business stopped. Australia already doing few bit of business inside the country. Certainly when the market will be open, it will be less luxury travel, but as a business, I think the model will be there. People will be traveling, and when it is not required, they'll have most probably this kind of Zoom meeting. Over. I think 8 minutes are done. I think I should keep mum.
Yes, Arijit. On a lighter note, people who know Arijit, they are not surprised when Arijit, every attempt he gets, he talks about building immunity, focusing on your own health. People who know Arijit, they know that how conscious he is about that. I'm not revealing any more facts, but we do appreciate Arijit, the effort that he put in to, stay healthy. But a couple of points that I picked up from Arijit. He says that now people will realize the power of collaboration more than earlier, and that is probably the only way for survival now. Number two, some sectors where Arijit feel there will be demand from the international market and it will remain, that is the food and related sector, right? And maybe Arijit, the health and wellness, if I can add on the health and wellness as a
food
segment.
sector, yeah, health and wellness, food sector, deep tech technology. Certainly, there is a platform which happened from Spain. They are offering virtual reality meeting rooms. You can actually shake hand with people using your 3D avatar. You can exchange money. You can do bank transactions. And once it is over, you can do the delivery maybe after 3 months. Those things are coming up. There are new
Yeah,
business model
yeah,
that is coming up.
right. But so some definitely some areas are there which will flourish, and as Indian businesses, Indian startups, if we can catch up or if we can really start focusing on those domains, there are huge opportunities to grow at a much faster pace. And I like the Puchka example of Arijit, that he will not go to Russell Street to have Puchka, but he will like a do it, he will buy a do it yourself kind of version of Puchka.
Atmanirbhar.
Atmanirbhar. And that's very interesting because what Arijit mentions, I really like that consumption will not drastically get impacted. Yes, it will get impacted. Probably the channel of consumption, the channel of delivery, that will go through a lot of change. That is what I think I like what Arijit said. That if I love Puchka, in fact, let me tell you, during the lockdown, we had Puchka, our entire family. You know how? There was a guy who had a bag full of Puchka packets. He was just hawking door to door, and we purchased a number of it, and we made Puchka at home. Okay, so Arijit, I am a live case study of what you said. Okay, anyways, thanks Arijit for that inspiring talk. Now Vikram is quiet for some time, so let me wake him up. Vikram, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Vikram, now it's your favorite topic. See, two questions bundled together. First question is that, you heard the problems, challenges, opportunities that we discussed, right? You mentor a lot of startups, you're actively mentoring a lot of startups, right? So in a nutshell, we want your views on the opportunities, the challenges we all know, okay? Quickly, just 2 minutes, some of the major opportunities that you see and you are advising startups. And then the key question of funding. Where is the money? How is money going to flow? Okay. How investors going to behave? You can take 5 minutes to talk about it. We all are eagerly waiting for that.
Thank you. So I think first I would start by agreeing with Arijit at least on that point, that this COVID-19, one of the positives is that Indians will definitely learn discipline. So that's definitely a positive point of it. And Earth will definitely get a time to heal all the things we've been doing, against the environment and climate. So while all these positive things are happening, if we start looking at all the ways in which businesses will change and the major disruption that's been caused. For example, Arjun talking about 3D meetings. So I think that's probably a way where I see that the new opportunities that are coming. Maybe instead of the regular malls that we have, maybe we'll now have 3D virtual malls where people can walk around, see each other's 3D avatars, try on stuff and clothes or jewelry or accessories, pay for things and get those will be home delivered offline mode. Restaurants we're already seeing are exploring setting up of separation booths. Like in the earlier times, in the olden days, the restaurants would have separate booths kind of a system, which would be partitions between seating arrangements so that a group of friends could sit together. Right. I mean, I think those things are coming back right now. I mean, now obviously instead of a group of friends, it'll be each individual sitting separately, possibly with partitions. We are seeing, instead of seeing how Ola and Uber cabs are now putting up the plastic screens between the driver and the passengers in the back seat. Nobody's allowed to sit in the front seat anymore. So you can sit in the back seat, like how the police cars in the US are. They've got a partition in between, or even even the cabs, even the US yellow cabs have that partition in between, right? So you can't really do much with the driver, right? I mean, except just transfer cash. I think even that's going to go and move into cashless. So all these ways of doing business, the traditional or even the new age ways of doing business, everything's gone through a disruption, I think. And I think a lot of these disruptions are here to stay, and people will find that these are actually more beneficial, right? I mean, even if you look at the the other day somebody shared, drive-in movie watching. It's in the US, you would have these drive-in movie theaters where people, I still think that they exist, where people can drive in with their cars and watch a movie. So I think that kind of a movie going experience can still be, allowed over here if you've got a large open area or a field, right? So I think those kind of opportunities one should be open and, flexible to adapting very quickly, because I think that's the advantage startups have. In my current portfolio or list, or the mentee list of companies that I'm interacting with, a lot of these guys have obviously tried to. Some of them have actually become a little opportunistic, and there's no harm in being that, absolutely. But they have kind of moved away from whatever they were doing and started getting into manufacturing of PPE kits or sanitizers or masks and whatnot, which is fine. Again, like I said, one must do whatever one can do to survive. But my suggestion would be to, instead of drastically change your existing business model, if you, for example, into I don't know, fintech, and you're suddenly starting to make masks, it's completely unrelated, a product or service that you're getting into without having any background. So I'm finding a couple of these guys getting stuck later because they do not know who to sell it to down the line. They're not from the industry, or they end up making some wrong business decisions. So I would rather suggest that these guys, whichever startups have to kind of pivot or do recalibrate their business models, should think along trying to do that along their existing business lines, business models, existing products and services. For example, we've got somebody who's making zero touch, solar powered eco toilets. So they have taken that zero touch technology out of it and tried to make zero touch sanitization stations or sanitization tunnels. So that, I think, is a good adaptation of the application of that technology into the current scenario, where the product becomes more relevant in the circumstances. Again, somebody who was into a healthcare company who's providing basic health parameter checkup for kids in schools and a health app, is now transforming into not only just measuring the thermal temperature through thermal gun, but also using oximeter to measure SpO2 levels, and a respirator to measure the lung function, are able to measure the vitals of everybody who's joining back the workforce. So immediately, all these kind of people who are coming back, whether it's in factories or offices or educational institutes, can have their vital parameters checked instantly when they're entering office, and be red flagged if there is a case of critical issues, and be segregated or isolated, thereby preventing infection. Again, somebody who's into providing driver services, they are making their drivers get into deliveries, because a lot of these products and services are now trying to offer, whether it's restaurants or medicines, or now we're even looking at liquor being home delivered. So people are, adapting their business models, understanding that there is, the dire need to kind of find relevant products and services that to go to market with in the current scenario, which will not just keep them alive, but also help not just the consumers, but also the economy, and keep things afloat. So I think that is the way forward, the indications that they are showing. And in terms of investments, I would say that those VC funds would already raise money from LPs. They already have some money, and they have it, they've raised it with the premise that they will be investing in, say, X number of companies. So they have to follow that hypothesis, and they have to kind of go down that road and make those investments come what may. As per the SEBI guidelines, as per the SEBI rules. An angel investor, of course, will probably not do that, because most of the angel investors already have a separate business or separate line of work of their own, and they are, they have been investing the surplus money into startups from the existing business. But now, since the economy is taking ahead, a lot of these traditional businesses taking ahead, A lot of people will want to conserve cash. A lot of them there will be liquidity challenges. So a lot of these angel investors might not be as forthcoming to take those kind of bets and take those kind of gambles in the foreseeable immediate future for the next 6-8 months till such time as things start getting back to normal. So, probably angel syndicates like the ones we have, like Ekel. So maybe together we can still, out of a lot of the or angel platforms, probably they might still be able to put in something, right? But a lot of the investors who also, have limited corpus available at their disposal will want to save that dry powder to help their existing portfolio companies, because it makes a much better business decision to invest and do further tranches or further rounds in existing companies and help them survive rather than invest in newer companies. So obviously a lot of that is going to happen. A lot of people are also choosing to wait and watch and see how the situation unfolds. But it's not as if, like I said, investments are completely stopping. It's not as if all startups are going to go under. A lot of these guys are adapting and pivoting. A lot of these guys have already raised capital. They're going to be able to tide over this crisis for the next couple of, but enough cash for the next 2 years. So I think that's the way it's going to go down.
Thanks, Vikram. So to summarize whatever you have said, I think one important point you mentioned is that technology enablement. Whatever business you are in, you should be ready to adopt technology. And in fact, in some cases, it's heavy technology because the distancing, the consciousness about movement, restrictions, and all. So sometimes the investment might be quite heavy. Regarding the, but interestingly, what you said again, if it's a basic need, consumptions will not suffer. The channel of delivery, the channel of consumption will change or maybe disrupted. And the startups or the business who identify those trends faster and align their business accordingly would probably be the winner, and rest will have a natural death, because just the fact is that they couldn't adapt to the new market needs. So a lot of questions I have in mind, but unfortunately we need to come to an end and leave some time for questions. My last question to Anand. So Anand, now coming back, like after the comments that you have made, now we have gathered some more thoughts. So the challenges you have mentioned, RAID alert, the facts and figures that you have shared, and then we heard about certain opportunities, some ways how you can navigate through this maze, related to funding also, that yes, funding is going to dry up a bit. The angel investment segment is going to be more conservative, but still VCs will fund because they need to fund. They already raised money from LPs, but they will be more, the due diligence will be much more stronger. They will look at a strong USP before they do it. So if I combine all these things, so yes, there are challenges, but there are opportunities. But to grab those opportunities, first thing is you need to survive, at least for the next 6 months, right? So I think that's the first step. If you can survive for the first 6 months, then you can do whatever, our other speakers have spoken. So Anand, quick tips for startups or small businesses, that how to stay afloat.
Yeah, I don't have a management thesis on giving Gyan on how to remain afloat. There are much more qualified people and respected ones. But I like the approach how Vikram said that if cinema watchers have to drive in again and go back in the cars, and the drive-in theaters will come up. Of course, likewise, the cinema industry will decide and work on how to make new movies. A great way to go forward is to read backward. To get a new idea, read old books is often said. And there is enough in the mythology that we would be able to imbibe upon. But important to realize that crisis is a great equalizer. Everyone becomes equal. It brings a socialist approach to survival in some form. And we did contemplate at some stage that should we give everyone 25,000 rupees salary so that one can buy ration and stay in business, when in the early days we did not know how the tides will turn. We were lucky to fall on our feet and run well, and now we are trying to fly with wings. What is also important is that what Vikram also said, and Arijit mentioned about, that the pivots that you do are subtle, and what you are able to do within your area of influence. So look at us. We serve the mason, plumber, electrician, painter, carpenter, driver, maids. The people who serve you are the ones who we serve. We say we serve the customers who don't tweet. They talk to God directly. क्योंकि गरीब की आह बहुत लगती है, right? And that segment, we saw there are two parts to our business. One is cash in and one is cash out, the banking services. So people who are remitting money from urban centers, that fell down, and the withdrawals because of the government DBT coming in rose up drastically. So very clearly, where did this segment go? And no brainer, when we realized, we found that they have gone back home, we could speak to them, and we started an opportunity called Jobs Nearby. All these customers know my retail, 4.5 lakh retail touch points. So they walk up to my retailer and they will start now registering for a job. What are they doing? Where are they placed? Where do they want to go back? And that is the supply side of the registry. So thinking on the feet, this is one thing that we could bring. Second is on the momentous this opportunity. We have been building on a program called Buy Nearby. For last 2 years, we have been engineering it. It is a module which allows you in a touch-free manner to be able to order to your retailer next door and pay him digitally, and either go and fetch it or let him come and deliver. It goes live tonight. It is the most appropriate moment. So to be able to engineer things and sit in bay and see what is the most opportune moment to bring out your engineering is a thing, I would say. I don't know if it's an insight, but it's a reality. Yes, of course, nothing is permanent. It has been demonstrated. All the business models are up for change, revamp, remodeling, rebooting, and no one knows what will happen. But blind faith is that if you are ethical and you apply what is good for from ethics perspective, it will hold you in stead today and in the long run. So whenever a decision is coming up our way, if it is right, we say do it. If it is wrong, even in for short term, please no, throw it out of the window. Yes, long live patriarchy. Men and women are equal. At home, we get to wash dishes. My wife is not listening, I hope. But yes, what women were to do and what men are to do. No, I'm not talking about you. Sorry. So the things have come to an equal opportunity for everyone. Going forward, the gig economy will open up, which is again a great socialist equalizer. I make this statement because mass will not be deployable as a salaried employee, but they will be available to do a gig assignment for you. And as much as you can do is as much as you will earn. And everyone will have fixed 8 hours, 10 hours only to do work. And that will bring in a great distribution of income in pockets of various environments. There would be similar kind of deliveries. There would be similar kind of farming opportunities. There would be similar kind of short surveys that people would be able to engage and conduct. So there is a large workforce which will come onto the gig platform and available for bringing up new opportunities. Important, what shines out is not all. Actually, there is a lot which goes beyond. And if there are videos to be circulated from this webinar, I must encourage people to engage with a few of the startups like us who are being seen outside as quite successful. There is a lot which goes beyond the visible success. There are failures after failures. There are debates after debates. There are fights for good after fights for good and for bad for good. Lot has happened below it. Lot of role recalibrations are happening. My marketing team is working with my contact center team to help deploy programs. My sales team sitting at home has become a contact center. So the roles have reversed, changed. A lot of people have come out forward offering their own salaries, saying take my half salary, because everyone wants to eat together for longer rather than chop off half of us and say only I will survive. There have been very good human faces that that touches us when we see that as a startup entrepreneur we have stood up. People show their true worth and in these times. So respect that, go deep dive, and of course, we have seen a huge amount of work on digital marketing, and I would offline want to connect with the profs and see how we can better it. The communication with the customer, communication with the colleagues has been very important. Communication with the stakeholders, including government in our case, and with the customers has been very important. We also have been good by variabilizing a lot of our costs. So having a cost on outcome basis is a great model, which will again open up rather than a fixed cost emolument for various assignments. So these are nuggets of realizations. I would not say these are success mantra for all, but with a pinch of salt, attempt it in your own environment, those of you who would watch it later. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anand. Some great, I would say, examples. In fact, the last one you mentioned that we're going to move to an outcome-based model. The kind of the jobs that we know nowadays will shift to that gig economy, where people will be more like on-demand kind of basis. So lot of, and these are big changes, big disruptions in the current environment. And yeah.
I would want to add that we must read up the September 2013 Economist. There is a well-researched article by a professor talking about the outcomes of automation. And he has compared the human race population to be at the same level at which in 1865 the population of horses was. And large number of horses, suddenly the Ford motor came in and the horses were to be butchered. The human race stands at that cusp today where we are innumerable, but the jobs will be automated by tons. The 5% of the economy, the intelligent ones will command 90% of the revenue. The bottom of the pyramid on skill will do the menial jobs of the mass, and there will be a large segment which will be left redundant in this automation era. Sorry, Arijit, I was cutting you. You were
perfectly fine. I was actually supporting all your points. So over to you, Shubhranshu. I'll maybe need some 2 minutes to.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So no, like I think we are done with our formal structured session. So I would like to.
Can I add?
Check with the audience. Just 1 second, Arijit.
Sure.
Let me check with the audience whether we have some questions for our panelists. So please unmute yourself, and I mean, it will be good to identify yourself, and you can also specify that if there is any specific panelist who would like to answer your question.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I've been hearing to all of you now. In summation, I want to know what are 1 or 2 life-altering ideas or startups that you are aware that people are working on, which will further change or further disrupt the way we are going to exist in this post-COVID scenario. Number 1, and number 2. Just coming back to what Anandji said a little while ago. Anandji, ek to puchka khane jab bhi aap ready ho, we'll go to Russell Street. I will go because डरने से सिर्फ डर फैलता है. डर के कितने दिन जिएंगे. But coming back to your other observation, about that 5% and 90% revenue. How do you see ultimately whatever we do? Apart from commerce, if we can't take the economy or the people or the other stakeholders together, see, it won't survive for a long time. We need to have an inclusive thought. We do live in a society. Whether currently we are living indoors, and sometimes this indoors will always become outdoors. How do help people thinking about that 95% people or the other people who are in the 10% revenue zone? These are the 2 questions I want to throw. I know Akash had some questions, so Akash, maybe you want to ask your questions now, so the panelists can answer it one go, or you want to do it?
No, I have rather hear the question, your question answered, then I'll have one question actually that I'll ask.
Okay. So the first question was any startups, a couple of examples on the disruptions that are happening in the startup world, which is going to be, like setting up some future trends. Arijit, you move around the world, may not be from India. Any example from that you can share?
Estonia. Estonia, there is a company who started an XR company. That XR company wanted to raise fund around 3 months back. They raised the fund during the COVID-19 era, and their system is basically the system I'm talking about, the virtual reality meeting system. So they have raised a good amount of money, working like anything. Now they are overloaded with work. Banks are asking that whether they can become their client. They are flourishing like anything. Second example, I can go to an example with Thailand. There is a Thai-based company who started a cryptocurrency-based small cafe in Phuket. They have been trying to survive themselves during the COVID-19 era. They have been thriving like anything because they started delivering objects using the blockchain backend cryptocurrency system. A lot of things are happening. A lot of disruption happened. I can go on, but I mean, how much time I do have? Shall I can go on.
No, Arijit, that's okay. We just wanted pointers.
If you look at the industry, honestly speaking, the people who are doing organic food manufacturing, whether it is in India or outside India, people are earning money. It's not that things have stopped. If you look at Russia, there are systems which is coming up. They are looking for an alternative source where they can invest money in some other country. They already invested in, as per my understanding, as per my knowledge, in last 1 month, they have invested in 3 different startups. And that is more on food and food tech, not into other disruptive technology like blockchain or deep tech or virtual reality. There are other funds, for an example, from WBAF. I know a person from Dubai who have invested in 4 companies as an angel syndicate, and that money is not a small amount. During this COVID-19 time, okay, let me give you a fact. People laughed at me when I said that I'll be shutting down all my office, moving towards online. Now you get the news in newspaper that TCS is moving all his employee strength, and that become a news. At earlier days, people started laughing at me. My God, this guy is not going to have any kind of office, so he's poor. I've got 327 guys working on internet with a proper ecosystem. We didn't stop. I mean, we never stopped during this COVID-19 era. Everything
you have already disrupted. Arijit,
so
you already disrupted
the main challenge here in Shubhranshu, at least in India, we lack a lot about when you talk about technology. We talk a lot, but when you come back to the implementation part, it's not about only gaming or maybe VR. Technology can be anything. We lack very basic things. Say for an example, if you go for food, there are startups who came up with a solution where you can the packet that you use to deliver the food, say for example the Zomato guys and all. I know a startup who created a alternative packet system which is renewable. I mean, you can actually go for recycling and you can again recreate it. I know another startup, I am actually directly mentoring them, Torchit. They used to develop devices for blind people. They invented a technology where you can go for a UV ray. So people started asking them whether they can deliver the same after the COVID-19 era, so that when they start their factory, they can deliver it. I know another, bunch of startups coming from France who have completely disrupted the concept of office. They created an office using a suitcase. You have that suitcase, you carry it, press a button, it becomes a ready-made office within 3 minutes with a sitting arrangement of 2 guys. So you have your movable office system. So things are disrupting across the globe. I mean, country-wise, it's happening. I can go on with another GES country example. A lady, her name is Lily. She invented a technology wherein you have a pill, and if you consume that pill, your internal viral ecosystem is completely changing, and you can clean your blood. It's medically tested. I'm into a board of another company based out of Denmark who created a solution for COVID-19, not only COVID-19, to test anything on flu. I think I uploaded that in Facebook as
Rajit,
well.
I think Vivek has a question. Vivek, you want to add to your question? I saw you raising your hand. You are on mute, Vivek. You are on mute. Yeah.
Dada, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think some of these ideas are very nice. And Munmundi and Abhishek, please personally hound Arijit after this is over and get these ideas from him so that we can do a knowledge share with our members and a larger base. You know,
If you wish, I can bring those guys as a speaker. Not a problem on that.
Dada, I'll leave that to Munmundi and Abhishek. But some of the ideas you've mentioned, I think it's a good knowledge share. And I want, because later on I'll also forget. I have a very wonderful photographic memory. I forget 2 seconds after I see something. So this is for my colleagues, both Munmundi and Abhishek, that the thing about Estonia, because you are rattling things off. Some of us are able to grasp things, but some of us like to get to know more. So it's just for that. Dada, thank you. Sorry, back to you, Dada. Sorry to disrupt you.
So
No.
that technology from Denmark, what they have created, you use your smartphone. Say you have a camera. I have a camera in my phone. Everybody got a camera, okay? And the phone got a sensor which can actually detect your heat, like your breathing styles and all, okay? It can detect your retina. So what they are doing, they have detected the retina, they have detected the skin color, skin tone, as well as your heat sensors, and then calculate, understand using a backend AI whether you have got a flu or influenza or what kind of disease. It is giving you an actual result. So maybe we can have a session on the same. They are already started working with 4 different countries and they are collaborating with different governments so that they can detect COVID instead of writing stuff using your mobile. That's not perfect. I mean, I can always say that I don't have any flu on the form. I can fill up that. But how can you escape your retina? How can you escape your skin color and your tone? So that's the kind of solution, that's the kind of disruption that is happening. I can go on, but I think I'll give back the mic to Raghida.
Yeah, no, Vivek, I think we had enough examples, but as you rightly said, we need to spend some more time to understand what they are doing. So, what is your second question? Actually, sorry, I forgot the second question.
The question was about the 90% of the people being left out.
Yeah.
How can we work as inclusive society?
Right, Anand. Yeah,
that is what the whole gig economy is about, Vivek. So 2013 is too far away now in the past, and over the years, what we have been thinking about is that gig will open up, and which is where I say it's a great social equalizer. So there will be a lot of such assignments. There will be a lot of new job roles which will emerge. For cricket, already video vouchers role has emerged. For example, there will be a lot of appreciation for art, and coachings will start around those things. There will be a lot of new hobbies which will emanate, and people will start, minus the COVID, the share economy part that would evolve. Yes, even with the share economy, the efficiency goes up, and which again will bring the production down, but again leaving people behind for doing gig economy work. So that is where I was coming from, and while it's a small solution, we will have to co-create more together.
So Subhranshu, can I come in for a minute?
Yeah, please.
This sounds a little idealistic or even philosophical, but I think because of 2 reasons. One is because anyway, a lot of normal businesses are seriously disrupted and may not come back to normal. We have an opportunity of either waiting for things to come back to the old normal, or wait for, in a whatever way, haphazard way, some kind of new normal to emerge. Or the third option is to actually imagine a new normal, which is a better, more sustainable and a more inclusive way of leading our lives in the future. Let me just give 2-3 quick examples, and this can go on and on and on. I think a lot of things that we do or have done in the past, 20, 30, 50 years is probably a wrong way of living. For example, the luxury goods may not exist as much, but we have going back to the 1995%, we have a huge population. We have 130 crore people where basic education, basic health care, basic quality of life, basic living standards are not maintained. Now, if those can be created and they can earn enough money, both as demand and supply side, imagine we can probably have a much bigger and more, per capita GDP, but also a more inclusive and a fairer and a healthier society, rather than a few very rich people and a large population of poor people. Imagine how we live in cities where we have to travel long distances from home to offices. Now, if you're working from homes, or we can walk to offices, can it be a different kind of world with less pollution, with less amount of material uses, but better quality of life, better mental health, better physical health? And what would it mean? What are the new opportunities? What are the new services? What are the new kind of businesses that can happen? For example, we don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough healthcare. Right now, thanks to COVID, yesterday I was watching on TV, we have a mental health crisis. We need to have so many more mental health professionals, and maybe a lot of mental health solutions have to be given digitally and online. So there is that need, but that need is not getting fulfilled. So we can probably reimagine. We can go back almost to a drawing board, because some of us are now being forced to sit at home and twiddle our thumbs or think of new ways of doing things, and almost imagine that if we had to start from scratch, what would be a better, fairer, healthier, nicer, long-term, more sustainable way of building a future world for our children and grandchildren, where everybody has a good life, decent income, and what kind of new services. And maybe some old businesses should not exist anymore, either because they're polluting or because they are, create inequality in society, or they're unfair. Maybe we have an opportunity to reimagine the world. Okay.
Thanks, Siti. Akash, you had some question. You said you'll ask later.
More than yeah. So I had a question, and more than a question, it is a realization. So I come from a manufacturing background where a lot of the concept was मिल के बात करते हैं. ठीक है, I got the gist on the phone. Let's have a meeting. Let's sit down. Let's discuss. Let's stand on the shop floor. But now what we've come to realize that although all my factories are running, I'm not going to any one of them, because I've realized that I can actually do as much work sitting from home. But I think what I would request the entire panel here and the people who've been working remotely, working in different teams who are geographically dispersed, to maybe help a bulk of our chamber members who are from the brick and mortar industry, to see how many of the job roles that are currently huddled up in the office can be done remotely from individual homes. So if you are reimagining how IT services would look like, how tech companies would look like, with TCS wanting to shift 75% of its workforce to remote working, I think there is an opportunity for even manufacturing industries, or even industries in the brick and mortar space, to have a sizable percentage of their workforce also work from home. And I think that's an area where people who've been doing it, for a long time, can give us practical tools and I would say ideas on how to make that happen.
Thanks, Akash. So it was as you said, it's a realization which you wanted to share with us.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah,
Sure.
I think that's
Sure.
very valid. If we don't have any more question, maybe it's time to wind up. Let me wait for 1 minute if there is any other question. I think we have gone past our scheduled end time.
I don't see any questions. And Rishabh, can I invite you to give the Akash, who's giving the vote of thanks? I forgot. Sorry.
I'm lined up to do that. If you don't mind, I'll start
Akash,
off with that.
so you can thank the panelists, the attendees, and our friends of media who will be getting. And Arijita, I will connect offline with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. So
Anandji,
I would like to.
Sorry.
I would like to do this a little bit formally, and I would like to thank on behalf of the chamber our guests, Mr. Arijit Bhattacharya, the founder and CEO of Virtual Infocom, Mr. Chandradeep Mitra, founder and CEO of People Magic and co-founder of Meta for Sight, Mr. Anand Kumar Bajaj, founder and CEO of Pay Nearby, and Mr. Vikram Duggal, managing director, Ekel Ventures and Ekel Advisory Services, for creating the webinar and enriching us through their valuable views and insights. And special thanks to Dr. Subhrangshu Sanyal, CEO, IIM Kolkata Innovation Park, for moderating this session. I also want to thank the chamber members who who joined us not only on the Zoom platform but also on Facebook Live, which has been gaining prominence in the last few days. So I'm hoping that a lot of our chamber members are watching us through the Facebook Live feed. And I believe initiatives like these can not only find solutions to the problems that we are facing in this sector, but more importantly, give ideas which are beyond what we usually get. Because if the opportunity that we get to interact with people from various industries allows us to think outside the box and enrich ourselves. And I would like to propose a hearty vote of thanks and request all of you to carry this with acclamation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. Bye.